Okay, today we're going to talk about a scam so big, so absolutely brazen, it honestly sounds like something out of a movie. It's the story of a billion-dollar company, right at the center of the whole green energy movement, that promised it was saving the world, but was really just built on, well, nothing. They weren't just selling a dream, they were literally selling thin air.
And that brings us to the big question, right? The one that's just so hard to wrap your head around. How does one guy, a former mechanic, convince some of the smartest money on the planet, we're talking about a company owned by Warren Buffett, no less, to throw $1 billion at solar panels that were basically imaginary? To understand that, well, you have to meet the mastermind himself.
You know, behind every great con, there's always a great storyteller. And our guy is Jeff Carpoff, the founder of DC Solar. Now, Carpoff wasn't some tech genius from Silicon Valley or a Wall Street prodigy. Nope, he was a mechanic. But what he had was charm, confidence, and an idea that just felt perfect. It tapped right into that global excitement to go green.
And the beauty of his pitch was that it was so incredibly simple. DC Solar would build these mobile solar generators, picture solar panels on a big trailer. Then they'd lease them out to power stuff like lighting towers at concerts or sporting events. Investors would buy the generators, collect the cash from the lease, and, this is the key part, they'd get these massive government tax credits for supporting green energy. I mean, on paper, it looked bulletproof, a can't-lose deal.
But, and you know a but was coming, behind that brilliant clean energy facade was something way more familiar. Just a good old-fashioned scam. The whole company wasn't really built on solar power at all. It was an incredibly fragile house of cards, built from fake numbers and phantom profits.
At its core, DC Solar was just one giant Ponzi scheme. It's a classic trick, really. You take money from new investors to pay profits to your early investors. To them, it looks like the business is a huge success, so they tell all their friends, and more people want in. The whole thing can keep going as long as new money keeps pouring through the door, even if the company isn't actually making a dime.
And the cycle they set up was just ruthlessly effective. First, Carpoff would land a big fish, a major investor. Then, he'd turn right around and use their money to send out those fake lease payments to all the earlier investors. Well, those folks were thrilled. They're seeing huge returns. So they spread the word, which creates all this buzz, and that brings in even more cash. It was the perfect little merry-go-round of fraud.
But here's where the story goes from a financial scam to something truly mind-bending. The money tricks were only half of it. The craziest part was the physical fraud. See, investors thought they were buying thousands and thousands of real, tangible things, steel and silicon. They weren't. The fleet itself was a ghost.
So get this. Investors were told that they were buying into this massive fleet of over 12,000 unique solar generators. Each one had its own vehicle identification number, a VIN, just like your car. But the reality? It wasn't even close. Only a few thousand of them actually existed. They were basically selling the same few generators over and over and over again to different people. It was a billion-dollar magic trick.
So, how in the world do you pull that off? You'd think it would take some super sophisticated tech, right? Wrong. It was shockingly simple. When auditors or inspectors came around, they just have employees literally go out and scrape the VIN plates off the machines and slap on new ones. They were manufacturing billion-dollar assets with a sticker. It's just unbelievable.
So what do you do when you have nearly $1 billion of other people's money just flooding into your bank account? Well, if you're Jeff Carpoff and his wife Paulette, you don't build a green energy empire. Nope, you build a personal one, and you fund one of the most ridiculously over-the-top lifestyles you can possibly imagine.
I mean, the shopping list is just breathtaking. We are talking about a car collection of more than 150 cars. Luxury cars, race cars, you name it. They didn't just buy a private jet. They started their own private jet company. They bought a minor league baseball team. And of course, they scooped up dozens of luxury properties. Every dollar that came in from an investor was just another thing to cross off their personal wish list.
When it was all said and done, this is the number that really matters. $1 billion. That's about how much investors lost thinking they were bankrolling America's renewable energy future. But instead, they were just paying for an incredible fantasy built on nothing but lies. But here's the thing about a house of cards, or a Ponzi scheme. They can't last forever. Eventually, you run out of new money to pay off the old promises. The whole thing gets too big, too wobbly, and then the entire rotten structure just comes crashing down.
And when the end came, it was fast and it was dramatic. In December 2018, the FBI raids their home and the company headquarters, seizing all those fancy cars and freezing that fantasy lifestyle. Just over a year later, Jeff Carpoff pleads guilty,
And by November 2021, the charismatic swindler gets hit with a 30-year sentence in federal prison, one of the longest sentences for white-collar crime like this that region has ever seen.
So what do we take away from all this? Sure, it's an insane story about greed, but it's also a pretty big warning, right? In this frantic rush to invest in game-changing industries like green energy, how do we spot the real visionaries from the total phonies? When there's a gold rush for a better future, it really makes you stop and ask, who's actually checking if the gold is real?